In this episode, I talk about base design and I give a tour of one of my recent bases. Here's the design I like to use for mining. While this channel is about cars on belts, this is one place where cars on belts is not the best design. This design uses yellow undergrounds to get twice the throughput that you would get from above ground belts. It has a power switch that I can use to turn off the miners and drain the belts of copper before I work on them. I'm using a balancer invented by Madzuri to balance the chests. A balancer is needed here because sometimes the miners can run out of ore. The blue belt goes in a circle so that any ore that is left over circles around to the beginning to get a second shot. One disadvantage is that the belts from the miners to the loader need to be manually adjusted to get a good balance. The adjustment is different for each ore patch. Another disadvantage is when the ore patches run out, the balancer has a problem keeping up, but it works well enough to get you to the second version of this design. Mining productivity research is something to keep in mind when you design your base. As you complete mining productivity research, your miners will produce more ore at a faster rate, but you won't be able to take advantage of it because the belts aren't fast enough. In this design, the undergrounds were upgraded to red belts, and I changed the balancer to a bot-based balancer. I'm using a circuit network to set the requests on the buffer chests so that they are balanced. It might seem expensive to use bots, but for this example there are only 55 bots needed. I have, on a couple of past occasions, forgotten mining productivity research and placed the smelting furnaces at the mine instead of placing them in my main base. If you place the smelting furnaces at the mine, you'll need to upgrade or rearrange the furnaces every time you finish mining productivity research. After the train leaves the mining outpost, it will need to come into a stacker. The stacker is needed because the travel time between the mining outpost and the factory is not constant. As soon as one train empties out, another is waiting to take its place. The rest of the factory design can use belts and cars on belts to take the raw materials all the way to science packs. In the rest of this video, I'll look at a recent playthrough. This playthrough was designed to be a discussion for cars on belts. I wanted to focus on base building, so I turned off expansions and the minerals are more rich than they normally would be. Not peaceful mode though, there are still biter nests that need to be cleared and biter attacks from pollution are still a problem. This is the save game file before I switched to cars on belts. To get up to this point, you can look at any speedrun on YouTube to get some good ideas. For science, I have red, green, gray, blue, and purple science. You might notice that the gray, purple, and blue science are not enough to keep up with the red science. This was not a problem because I simply alternated the research by looking at what was available on the belts and then picking a research that had science packs available on the belts. And while that research ran, the science packs for the other colors could stack up. Why did I pick purple instead of yellow? I wanted to start building endgame quality factory. That means nuclear power, Corvex processing, beacons, assembler 3s, and so forth. I would like to point out that I left space intentionally 3 tiles between each line here so that there's space for beacons to be placed later. If we come down here and look at the main bus, we see that the spaghetti is starting to become real. Here's the processing. It's got red circuits, and well, you can just see it as I scroll across here. And then green circuits are down here, and then smelting is here, and then the miners are here. We've got a starting power plant, a small refinery with oil pump jacks, and then over here is a nuclear power plant with Corvex processing, and follow this belt down to the uranium mining. Here's the save game file after the switch to cars on belts on the main bus. I'll walk through the same order. You got the science research up here, and you've got the same purple, green, red, gray, and blue science here. I've added a yellow science You can see down here, here's my cars on belts that is replacing my belt-based main bus. I also added robot frames, and that's in the same spot. And then these were over here before. And then green circuits got moved over here. This freed up quite a bit of space, and I've added a utility manufacturing area where I can craft the stuff that I need to build my factory. Inserters, modules, assemblers. Here's a lubricating oil from Cole. Belts. And then the smelting is in the same spot. So the cars on belts basically took the same amount of space that I had for the belt-based main bus. Here's the save game file with the final factory. It runs at 900 science per minute. I'll give you a quick walkthrough. We'll start with the science production, and it's in the same spot that it was, except I've added beacons and modules. These assemblers are in the same spots. Mostly the red science got moved over here so I could add a second row of gray. The rockets are over here. The white science feeds down in here like this. Rocket control units are here. Yellow science is here. It was in the same place as the previous save. And then gray science, and then the inputs for the gray science. Green science, the inputs for the green science. Gray science, and then the inputs for those are below that. Blue science is here. Red science. Robot frames. And you can see all this as I scroll across. I've added more cars to the belt because I needed an increase of throughput. So that's one of the advantages is it takes up the same amount of space and you just increase the throughput by adding cars. I've got a little Spidertron manufacturing area in my utility area. I have a nuclear power plant here, rockets for the Spidertrons. More utility stuff to build my factory. The belts are still here. The green lubricating oil from Cole. I added a wood burning plant to get rid of the wood. And then the assembler manufacturing, inserter manufacturing, and modules are in the same spots. The miners got replaced with a smelting line and train unloader. Everything comes in by trains now from remote mines. Except for this coal is still left over. But I also bring coal in from a mine here. And then I have two utility manufacturing areas that provide resources. I have a steel manufacturing area and a circuits manufacturing area. And a refinery that's separate. And then those get trained in as well. The steel, we'll take a look at the steel. If we look at the steel, this whole area up here, this whole area right here, which is almost the same area as my main factory, this is purely for steel production. This is just rows upon rows of furnaces making steel plates. And those all get loaded into one train. And then that comes down this rail line down to here to get unloaded. And then if we look here, we've got more nuclear plants. I just stamped down copies of my original plant. So it's just copy paste, building more nuclear plants. That's pretty simple. I have a circuit manufacturing area, and the circuit area is almost as big as the main factory also. The circuit manufacturing area is that, and the main plant is about that size. So it's almost the same size as the main factory. And this produces green circuits, red circuits, blue circuits, and modules, and that's it. That's all this produces. And these are all copies of the same blueprint. This is 24 copies of this same thing that makes two inserters with greens, four assemblers with red circuits, one assembler with blue circuits, and then one assembler with modules. And it's 24 copies of that same design, just over and over and over again, to get the circuits that I need for my factory. And that is also moduled and beaconed. And then that gets loaded on a train here. You can see that is all this produces right here, is these 5 components: green circuits, red circuits, blue circuits, and 2 types of modules. Those get loaded on a train and then transferred up to the main base. And then finally, the refinery. The crude oil is brought in by train. And then this is just a bunch of refineries and assemblers making rocket fuel, and chemical plants doing the cracking. And the only outputs from this plant is rocket fuel and petroleum gas. That's all that comes out of this plant. I actually don't use the light oil or the heavy oil. The light oil and the heavy oil stay all in this plant and get cracked down to light oil or turned into rocket fuel. And then those get loaded onto trains, and then those trains carry them up to the main base here. In summary, for how to build a base: Step 1. Look at some speedruns on YouTube and build a starter base with main bus design. Step 2. Get up to bots. Step 3. When your main bus turns into spaghetti, replace it with a cars on belts design. The cars on belts design should be a circle with cars gated with a circuit network. My other videos show the details on how to do this. Step 4. Put beacons and modules on everything. Step 5. When you need more throughput, add more cars to the belt. I've built 3 bases with cars on belts instead of main bus, and I firmly believe cars on belts are better than main bus in every way in the mid to late game. This video showed an example 900 science per minute base design that shows it can work. Please check out my channel for more Factorio cars on belts content. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.